everybody. Sorry for the late start. I know that we usually wait a few minutes before everyone checks in and so on. The life of an RA, residence assistant, never really ends. I was just having a meeting with my co-RA. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the usual stuff, of course, mental health and so on. But as we near Christmas and the end of the year, I wanted to do a little discussion on some of the things or some of the ways people try to convey their stress or their distress, really, to people without knowing. And I think this was something that we see a lot of times, very common, whether it be in the office or the home. A lot of people aren't aware that people are suffering, and I think for us to be able to do more advocacy and just to be aware of the situation in Guyana and our homes and our communities, we need to be able to read between the lines. And I think a lot of times we're unable to do so because we just don't know, and we also just don't know what to say. And I think a lot of times people say to me, oh, well, Riza, like I kind of knew, or I was kind of worried, but I didn't really know what to say or how to say it, or I wasn't sure. And so what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight is basically how to know when people are trying to tell you that they are having mental health issues. And so in most cases, a very common thing that we hear people say, and I mean at any point in time of the year it happens, but especially around Christmas. And why Christmas? Because there's several factors that can make persons, stressed or unwell during the Christmas season. I mean, for many people, it's a great time to be with family and loved ones, and all the Christmas parties are happening and those kinds of things. But at the same time, we have a lot of deadlines, and we have a lot of financial strain. So for those who may have large families, the things like the gift giving and the food and ensuring, very typical Guyanese household, you must clean, the drapes gotta come down, the whole house has to be wiped down, all these things that we don't think are a part of increasing our levels of stress. And so it's very important for us to be able to be aware of what are all the things that we have to do, being able to balance all the things that come with Christmas time, financially, emotionally, stress. I think another factor that people don't really think about, and when I was resident assistant in Canada, this was something that they used to tell us all the time, that the time of the year that we see a lot of suicides is in December, in the Christmas period. Because why? People are alone. Not everyone has friends. Not everyone has family. And so a lot of times that's when people tend to get very sad and disappointed with their situation. Maybe they may not be able to financially give people the gifts they want. They may not be able to do things with the house. A lot of construction and things are done leading up to Christmas, to finish off the house and stuff like that. So there's all these limitations that tend to become burdens and pressure on people. And when we're not able to realize that people around us are suffering or dealing with this, everyone else is in their own struggle, everyone else is in their own bubble, everyone's getting ready for the Christmas parties and this and that, and so we're not really receptive to the people around us. A lot of times there's a lot of deadlines, people are trying to finish up all those reports and stuff like that. So that's just an added thing. Children are now out of school, so what do I do with my children? Who do my children stay with? And so the more we are aware of the factors involved in added stress at this point in time of the year, the better we are to be open to having a discussion with someone who we might see that is struggling. Some people may ask, how do I start that conversation? I mean, like I would have discussed in my previous video, by the way, all my videos are now going on YouTube, so You can always look at Rise Can on YouTube, and there's a playlist for mental health there. And so you would have seen in my mental health November 10th video where I would have talked about mental health in the workplace. And I always encourage people, make the office a open space. For some managers and so on, it literally means having their door open. As a residence assistant, I literally have my door open. Like today, I've had my door open most of the day because I know there's a lot of students leaving, a lot of things that students would like to talk about, school, exams, grades. People are returning home to their families. A lot of these students sometimes are escaping their own countries and their own islands to further themselves academically, but at the same time they could have had the opportunity to stay in their country, but the added stress of the family or family related issues and drama does not make it easy for them to stay and finish a degree. So a lot of times I know there are students who are really fleeing the emotional burden and emotional strain of living at home with their family for 3 years when they can just come to Barbados, and if they can fund it, then that's great. So that is something we also see quite often. So being able to have an open door policy is quite important. Being able to start a conversation with someone, and we'll talk about this. When people kind of, very casually, oh, hi, how are you doing? How's exams? And so people's response is usually, oh, it's so stressful, so hard, this and that. But then there are the groups of people who just say, it's fine, or I'm surviving. And it's really, you have to be able to look for what we call in psychology incongruence. So, and I've talked about this as well, whereby your face is saying one thing, but you're saying something else. So like, I'm fine. And you kind of dart away and you're trying not to make eye contact and you're like, yeah, I'm good. Those kinds of things are pretty important in the sense that you are telling me, if I'm someone who pays attention to those things, you're telling me that you're not fine, you're not good. And that where we would suggests to me that I should do some little more following up. Be like, you sure? You don't really sound yourself. And it may be hard, and for some people it may be awkward. But I think a lot of times people would prefer to have an awkward conversation rather than, go off for Christmas and then realize, Sandra or Jane or John is not coming back to the office because they're not well. And a lot of times we don't want to talk about depression, we don't want to talk about mental health issues, we don't want to talk about suicide, and which we will talk about suicide a little bit later, a factor to consider. And so looking for that incongruence, looking for when people say like they're fine, looking for when people say that they're tired. I mean, yes, we understand this time of the year it is very tiresome, but at the same time, if someone is tired every time you see them, a conversation should be had. Is there something that we can help with? Is the hours too long? Is there, do you need some social supports? Do you need child support? Do you need, is something happening with your children? Is your children having a disability? Was there, bad results in the school report? These are things, and that's another thing to consider as well. School is out, children are home, so that's stressful alone. And then two, all the reports are coming back, so now people are realizing, if they didn't already realize, they're now looking at the reports and thinking, I think something might be challenging for my child. I think my child may need some more lessons, or I think my child may have a learning disability. And that's not something that we usually say. I think it's very common for Caribbean people, Guyanese in my experience, to say, well, he just hard ears, but being able to, understand where your child's struggles are coming from, you're able to find the resources, and hopefully, in your country or Guyana or wherever, there are the resources, and we're able to help persons who are struggling with, child-related issues, and so on. Okay, I'm getting a question by Alistair. I don't want it to escape, so let me just read it out and think about it and then I'll answer it. Rai, quick question for you. What is your thoughts on a digital social platform being created for persons who are troubling with depression and other forms of mental health issues? We are afraid of speaking directly to someone, but our out may feel more relaxed to speak through an online support platform with trained psychologists. Psychologists. Okay, so let me just address that. I understand that people are going to be scared or concerned. I think a lot of times Caribbean people are scared because of confidentiality. And that's really directly associated to the stigma that most people feel for being depressed or having other mental health conditions or being suicidal. And so ideally, yes, I would encourage people to have a social platform. I've had consultancies with persons who have wanted to start that up. It just hasn't come about, just hasn't happened. But I know that having that support is important. For example, someone messaged me the other day to say, hey, do you know somewhere online or like a WhatsApp or like a hotline I can call? I'm not feeling really too good. And I said, okay, well, there's this and that. But there really wasn't much to give them. And that was what was concerning. And I was very scared to give people hotlines and stuff, like even in Guyana, because I just don't know who's on the other side of that phone. And yes, some people just need to talk and vent and get out of their system, but at the same time, there are people who really just need to go in and see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And I'm scared that sometimes I give people information or people go online and use an online platform and it makes it worse. But I do like that the fact, Alistair, that you did mention trained psychologists. Goodness gracious, hold on a second. Hello, good evening. I'm on my video call. I'm on my live right now. I'm looking at the camera. I know. 10 more minutes. Yes. Bye-bye. Sure. Okay, so again, life of a residence assistant. Sorry about that. So to answer your question, Alistair, I think yes. I think a social platform would be helpful, but the end all result that I think Guyana and most of the world should be going towards is finding out why are people scared. And if the fear and so on comes from a stigma or judgment, that kind of thing, that's when we need to start also at the same time moving in a parallel. So providing the support, providing the service with trained psychologists, while at the same time being able to still work to breaking the stigma, because the social networks and the social supports and the hotlines work for what I deem moments of distress or bouts of distress. But at the end of the day, you still need to develop facilities. You need to develop the openness of people coming into therapy and coming in to see a psychologist. And so at the end of the day, it still needs to be done in the sense that we still need to break stigma, because people will still have to possibly come in for long-time therapy. Because if I'm on the phone with someone and maybe I'm dealing with the here and now, I'm dealing with their issues in the moment, but I can sense that there's something deeper troubling this person, I would refer them out to a psychologist. And if they're still scared, then there's not much I can do. So I think at the same time, I understand your point, and it really is needed, because I've dealt with this already for the year where people have asked me, like, who do I call, where do I go? But at the same time, we still need to continue to work towards advocacy and awareness on it's okay. It's okay to go to a psychologist. It's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to go to families therapy and family couples therapy and that kind of thing, because we all need a little bit more help. Because, and I tell this to people all the time, I can help my friends, but like my close friends, it becomes harder to be objective. And that's the thing. That's why psychologists and therapists and so on are needed, because we can objectively be on the outside to some extent while being empathetic, but understanding these are the issues, these are things that you're mentioning, these are the things that it sounds like you want to address. When there's so much going around in your head, it's like, how much can we process? How much can we prioritize to deal with? And that's how people get overwhelmed. And so I think that definitely the long run, the long-term goal is to break the stigma and get more psychologists, get more trained psychologists, people from this program. I would love for Guyanese to come and do this program. I have already spoken with Paho since 2 years ago before I left for this program, and I said, we need to have a fund put aside for this program, even if you just pay the tuition and then the person can pay to live here. Mind you, living in Barbados is more expensive than tuition. That's scary. But it is definitely helpful knowing that half of the way is already paved. And it's just up to selecting the people who really want to be in this field and people who really want to be therapists. Because yes, I can do research, but at the end of the day, my duty is to be a therapist. My duty is to be a psychologist, a counseling psychologist. I will sit and do therapy with group therapy and couples therapy and that kind of thing. So that is to answer your question. I hope I answered it. I mean, I guess we can always talk a little bit more in depth if you have ideas. By all means, shoot me a message and we'll discuss as we always do, Alistair. But thanks for the question. So yes, so I don't want this video to be too long. I try to make my videos somewhat short just because it's a little bit more able to, absorb that way. I mean, if you leave it up to me, I would talk for an hour. So, but going back to what we were talking about. So some of the factors, like we discussed, just to recap, is the financial burden of Christmas time, the workload of Christmas time, finish off reports, etc., house duties and so on, children being out of the break, so being able to juggle that, as well as anything that you may have discovered, like your child's academic status, your child's mental health status, and of course something quite important that we don't talk about, but I always like to bring it up because it's so important, and this will go into like the next point I'm going to make, which is the amount of alcohol consumption. Now, I'm not against alcohol consumption. I think the age of 18 in Guyana as a legal age of consuming alcohol is appropriate. I would not say to raise it. Raising an age of alcohol consumption does not change the alcohol consumption. I'll tell you that. As someone who lived in Toronto and it was 19 and visited the States and it's 21, it does not change anything. And I've gotten into many debates with people about this. Raising the age of consent for sexual activity from 16 to 18 does not stop your 15-year-old, does not stop your 16 or 17-year-old from having sex. Sorry, that's just the reality. And so if people are going to do what they want to do, they're going to do it. No law is going to really stop them. And that comes down to even things like thieving. We have crimes and criminals happening all the time, and clearly the law doesn't stop them. So why would your 16-year-old who's in love with her 18-year-old boyfriend care about a law? So, sorry, that was a little tangent about the laws. But, for example, suicide, for those who don't know, suicide is illegal in Guyana. It's illegal in Barbados, but no one gets charged, which is a good thing, which we can have a whole discussion and debate about that at another time. But the law doesn't really affect, I don't think, the act in the long run, at least not currently. So anyway, the point of talking about alcoholism during Christmas is such a big deal because we have, for those who don't know, I work with women victims of domestic violence and survivors of sexual abuse and sexual assault. So we see that, and we see this in Ghana all the time. People get drunk, they come home, they beat their wives. They beat their wives so badly that sometimes they might kill their wives, and then they end up killing themselves. And so another factor that can really, really impact someone's mental health at Christmas time is the amount of alcohol consumption. You see a lot of partners drinking away the gift money they had for their family. We see people drinking away money that they were supposed to use for their children's next year school fees. We see people drinking away money that they don't even have. And then you can't pay for things in the next year or January. So I think the amount of alcohol consumption is definitely something to look out for. And I think, again, we glorify drinking quite a bit. And I am trying to move away from that. I don't encourage, like, I remember seeing a picture years ago of a table of a bunch of guys I knew from my primary school and stuff. It was a huge table. It wasn't even Christmas time. Of a huge table of just laid out of empty banks. Bottles just empty, like legit, like 4 cases of like banks or whatever. And people are like, yeah, like bigging them up, yeah boy, you know, for start of Friday night, da, da, da. I'm like, this is something you should be proud of. I'm like, you're so proud, like, and I had like a little spiel. And I think I was the only one on the post that said anything negative. I was like, I'm so happy that you guys are so proud of yourself for finishing 3 cases of beer on a Wednesday night, you know, and because you don't clearly have work tomorrow and you clearly didn't need that like $20,000 or how much ever 4 cases of beer costs. Now I don't care. But like, you understand my issue, right? I hope. These are things that we have to consider. We glorify alcohol, but at the end of the day, you don't know when that man gets home, when you're done drinking with him, what he's going to do to his family. You don't have a clue, nor do you probably care. And so when we're there encouraging our buddies to drink and then drink and drive, or drink and go home to their wives, or drink and go home to their children, are we being responsible? Are we aware of what we're doing and glorifying and encouraging? And so that's something I always think about at Christmas time, the amount of alcohol consumption. And I remember seeing that one Christmas I was home visiting. I had not moved back yet. And I saw, and I won't call names, I saw a young man beat the crap out of a girl in front of Old Bistro because he was drunk, because he was drinking, because he's an abusive man. And no one could see, like I saw in the car at an angle and no one else saw but me, and I started screaming that so-and-so is beating this girl, da da da. And people were on the other side of the car when it was happening, but they couldn't see because the window was tinted. And they literally opened the door and saw the girl's face being pummeled by this guy. And they like ripped him out of the car and tried to pull her out as well. And it was a whole scene. But again, it comes down to, are we putting down our foot in the things that matter? Are we putting down our foot to abusive men? Are we putting down our foot to alcoholism across the board, women and men? You know, and so these are all the things that I think happens at Christmas time that can escalate a situation. And so that's going to go into my final point, suicide. Now, suicide in Guyana, we know we have a problem. We know that's the reason I'm here. Because it was always daunting to deal with opening a newspaper every single day, and I still have the clippings here, and look at suicides. Now, 3 Januaries ago, there was 7 suicides in January. 2014, there was 7 suicides in January. 2016, there was 14 suicides within the first 2 weeks of the year. 14. So not only did we double, but we doubled in half the amount of time. And so that was when we had all that stuff. And I remember I went on an interview with Mark Watson and spoke about that. And that's when it was like just a flurry of stuff happening between Georgetown and Blackbush Polder and Baramita and so on. So it was a collection of places, not really one set place, but it was happening. And there was just there wasn't enough that we could do. And I always come back to those same factors I opened with. December is not just December. It floods over into January. So reasons why people might commit suicide is the same reasons that they got depressed or they got overwhelmed in the first place. Financial, too much drinking and beating, too much just beating overall. Children do badly in school, and then you realize your child has an academic disability or a learning disability. You have stress from work, maybe you've lost your job. And so there's large amounts of things, numerous things that could cause suicide in January. And then you're also looking at things like people were lonely over the Christmas. You realize in that moment you are alone. You realize in that moment that you don't have family, or you feel that no one loves you. And so that's why you see in January, people are like, Raisa, what's your take? Why do we always have suicides in January? And I'm like, think about it. December is great for some people, but December is hell for others. Increased alcohol, spending money you don't have, being alone, or being around people who are just, sucking you dry financially, emotionally, physically, and so on. So of course there's going to be reasons why people would commit suicide in January and so on. And so these are the factors that I want us all to think about and take away from tonight's live discussion. To understand that though Christmas is a great time of the year for many people, it's also very difficult for others. And it's this time of the year and the rest of the year that we should take an increased amount of level of awareness of our staffers, of our friends, of our family, of our distant family, and maybe in another county, maybe in another region. If you have a little cousin, niece, or nephew, and the father's an alcoholic, invite the child out to stay Christmas with you, so the child doesn't have to be there, for an unpleasant Christmas, an unpleasant school holiday. So all these little acts can go a really long way. Checking in with your staff, checking in with your friends, listening out for the incongruence, listening out for I'm tired, I'm hopeless, no one loves me. These are things that would tell you that people are distressed. And yes, there are people be like, oh, but Raisa, they got them people who's always be distressed. They always stressed. No one does love them all the time. And I understand that. But even within that, those persons are still suffering. They still have mental health conditions. There's still conditions. There's, as much as we call like victim syndrome, that's a mental health disorder. Victim syndrome, like feeling like you're a victim all the time is real. It is how people feel, and so that should be taken seriously. I see something from Oren before I go. That wouldn't be such a bad idea, Alistair, especially if you're giving autonomy to those on the platform. Yeah, of course. And Oren, we talked about it earlier. You can rewatch it. And I've had discussions with other people about starting up a platform and doing videos like this and doing motivational discussions and having people like write in and stuff. But at the end of the day, we still need to break the stigma. And I'm all for it. Like, I would do my videos on there if you guys wanted. I would give advice if advice needed. Because in a few months, I will be a trained psychologist. And so, and for me, I'm still learning. I'm still in internship. I'm still between being a residence assistant and being a therapist. I'm still learning so much along the way. And so, by all means, keep the conversation going. Keep commenting. Share this video. It's gonna go up on my YouTube. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Raisa Khan. It's under the mental health playlist, and there you can see my interviews, conversations with Selwyn, interviews with Mark Watson, and of course all my other videos. But have a blessed night, guys. Have a great time. Have a safe Christmas. I will be in Guyana very soon, and I look forward to meeting up with those who want to meet up to, talk about mental health and discussions or any other platforms or any ideas like that. we will definitely get to talking this Christmas. As usual, we're meeting with my PAHO representatives, which I love and love to see and speak to, and my NGO crew. I can't wait to see you all. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I probably will do one more video for the year, but I'm just sending out my blessings in case I don't. But love you all, and thank you all so much for supporting me, and continue to support me and share my videos and subscribe to YouTube. Bye!